Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to today's Reddit Quickie from the subreddit HFY, called Manual Control, written by Legal. The link to the original story will be down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. No. Frasseth pounded at the console, but it didn't do any good. It wasn't coming back online, and he took a heavy sigh and held his head down in his hands as he heard the others move up behind him. Is it? Yes, the whole thing is fried. The Dominion mind worked perfectly. It blew the navigation array off completely. He waved his hands, and out of the window they could see the wreckage drifting free of the ship to join the rest of the debris field. And he'd probably sent off a signal, so that it's just a matter of time before a patrol swoops in and kills us all. And the others are in command. The crew looked glum at the news. To make it this far, to only fall at the finish line, so to speak. When they found the precious intel, they knew the trek back to friendly territory would be perilous, but they'd all volunteered. The debris field was supposed to be a calculated risk. The Dominion wouldn't keep it all well patrolled for fear of damaging their own ships. But they hadn't expected the mine. What do we do? Do we try a broad spectrum transmission? Gusmak added. And let the Dominion know what we found. Forsyth growled. What if we just try barreling through the rest of the field? Knox thought aloud, and everyone's silence made it clear that that wouldn't work. For some reason, Suresh was looking out the window, probably just observing the wreckage. I think there's a ship out there, she said, and Gunsek quickly ran into the console and looked over her. You're mistaken. I don't have anything on our sensors, no nav signals or autopilot pings. He looked over as she pointed out of the side of the window. But look! Forsyth sighed and moved over to push her out of the way. Clearly, you're mistaken. He looked through the debris cloud and was about to confirm that she was mistaken. But instead, he squawked in surprise and pointed. There's something out there. And it's moving, getting closer. Now the rest of the crew rushed over, crowding around as they tried to peer out through the window. How? Gersnick exclaimed. We've got excellent sensors. Is it some new stealth ship that can disguise its navigation signals? Nark snorted and flapped his thorax pocket in derision. It's just a human ship. Those primitives couldn't possibly have anything like that. They only discovered FTL half a generation ago. True, but they are neutral. They might help us, Suresh exclaimed, always full of hope. How? Probably hit a mine as well, Forsyth mumbled. Why else can we not get a read on their sensors? Well then how is it moving? Suresh asked, and everyone was quiet. They watched the ship get closer. Forsyth figured it out. It must be kilometers away, based on how small it was. Then the proximity alarm on the ship turned on, and he jumped in surprise. It wasn't far away. It was tiny. How did the humans make ships that small without artificial gravity? Or bioform pods? They watched it edge closer. Tiny white puffs or something nudging the ship, but a bit towards them. Finally, it was above their ship and they heard a clang as it struck the hull. What's it doing? Why didn't it go to the docking arm? Nawaz asked. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have one. Gusmak shrugged. Doesn't have one? How do they get between ships then? Knox demanded. They waited, and then all of them jumped as they heard something clang on the ship. It kept clanging until the Serish figure figured it out. It's outside of the airlock, in some sort of suit. Knox shoved her head out of the way and looked at the terminal. What sort of barbarian ventures into the void wearing only pressurized suit? Madness. Mad? Oh, not, it's trying to get in, Forsyth said. Let it in. But the docking ring isn't engaged. How do we open it manually? Gosmick asked, and everyone looked confused. They'd never had to engage the controls on their own. Forsyth sighed and stepped up to the terminal to make the airlock go through the various phases to let the small creature into the ship. After the airlock cycled, the crew crowded around the inside door, watching it open before the human stepped inside. The human was wearing a blue pressure suit that looked like something they'd seen in a museum. No Bracken had used something like that in centuries at least. It was a full head shorter than Suresh, and it seemed frail and dainty by comparison to the rest of them. Are you here to help? Suresh asked. I bet it set the trap, Knox claimed with crazy. How do you navigate without a computer? Gusmak asked. The human stepped back, seemingly overwhelmed by the talking before holding up a hand, indicating that they wait. Then he held up some strange sort of device. "What's it doing?" Nox wondered aloud. The human pushed a button on the device and heard a small, grainy voice speaking terrible Bracken. "Welcome, greetings. I am a person human. I love making maps." After that played, the human hit another button. "Do you need help?" "Oh, by the savior, it doesn't even have a real translator," Nox squawked. Suresh wasn't troubled, however. She leaned down and nodded. Yes, please help." The human seemed to understand this and pressed another button on the device. "Manual controlling's the device." They all looked at each other for a moment, and then the thing couldn't be serious, could it? "Well, it figured out how to move on its own ship around the field," Gusmek said, without some hesitation. "But that is tiny ship." "Do we have any other choice?" Suresh asked. Everyone was quiet for a moment before they looked at Farseth, who sighed and waved for the human to follow him. The small control section was just in front of the ship, generally only used for testing engines while in dock. He couldn't remember them ever being used while the ship was actually out in the open, let alone in a place such a dangerous field of debris. The human moved into the seat, pulling some small sliver of black stick from his pocket, and he began to write something on the small window on the manual control seat, as the others watched from behind him. "What's it writing?" "I think it's religious iconography," Suresh said, as the others couldn't make any sense out of the curved lines being drawn, or the straight lines in the middle. "Those are navigational trajectories," Gusmek asked, before the others simply laughed. Even Suresh wasn't crazy enough to think that humans could do that on the fly. Finally, though, the small creature stopped writing on the window and rubbed its hands together. Then it stretched out its arms, shook everything out, and then grabbed the controls. When the ship started moving forward, everyone couldn't help but squawk and grab onto the consoles to strap themselves in. "This is madness. It's going to drive us straight into the debris," Nox cried. "I think those really were navigational trajectories," Gusmek said. "By the savior, I hope you're right." Farseth was gripping his chair as he watched the debris fly closer towards them. But every time they looked ready to hit, the human would use the controls to send the ship on a new course. It was using the navigational thrusters constantly, spinning the ship this way and that, angling it, and firing off on another path that somehow didn't have debris in it. If anything, the human was making better time through the field than their navigational computer had, just with far more terrifying speed than the computer would use. "How was it doing this? How is it doing this?" Gusmek was gasping out in between the terrified squawks as 100 different times they all were surely about to die at the hands of the crazy human piloting the ship. But finally they were out. No one could believe it, and the human got out of the chair nodding at the Bracken before pulling out a device from earlier and hit the button. "Farewell, goodbye, time for making more maps." Then it waved at them and walked back to the airlock, waiting patiently for the Farseth to cycle the airlock and let the human back out. On the terminal he watched it float out of the airlock and then climb into the hull before it couldn't see it anymore. A few minutes later they had a ka-chunk when they soon saw the tiny human ship boosting back towards the debris field. They were standing around the control center, each humbled and confused. "It didn't ask for payment," Nox finally said. "It just asked if we wanted help," Suresh said. They glanced around at one another before Farseth sighed. "If that wasn't the savior returned in disguise to lead us into deliverance, then we have to start hiring human pilots. Once we find one that isn't so heavy on the thrusters, that is." He walked to the communications terminal to send out a type beam to the nav beacon that they knew was waiting for him. Just as he turned it on, though, Gunsmoke spoke again. "I just want to know what human maps look like. And are they for sale?" End of story. And that, my friends, is the end of this Reddit quickie. I hope that you enjoyed. If you'd like to support the channel or the author, all the stuff is down below. And as always, I hope that you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next story. Cheers.